Great, kia ora. Welcome to the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting. Great to have everybody here. Thank you all for being here, and we also had the workshop this morning, so it's great to see additional councillors here for the meeting too, so welcome to everybody. I'm going to hand over to Kate to do the karakia.
Kia ora. I oha ki runga kia ranganui, I oha ki raro kia papatuanuku, turikina nā mea kino ki te paiatia. Uhia mai o korowai aroha, he taonga mamato, ka puta ki te whaao ki te ao marama. Humie huie takie.
Thanks, Kate. Do we have any apologies for the meeting? No. No, we're all here. That's great, so no apologies. And any declarations of interest in relation to anything on the agenda today? No? That's great, thank you. We'll move to confirmation of minutes, our meeting of the 6th of March. Could I have a mover as Kate and a seconder as Peter Oscom that we accept the minutes? Confirmed a true and correct record. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried, thank you. Okay, we're straight into the meeting, and appropriately for the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting, our top first item is our Strategic Risk Top 10 report. A really good report, and we've got a lot more detail in the second paper, which is about Strategic Risk Register. But I'll hand over to Debbie to take us through and highlight any points that you want to make from the Strategic Risk Top 10. Over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, through the chair. I'm going to take the report as read. This is a review of the strategic risk profiles that was conducted with the LT in February and March to this committee. As you will see in the reporting, there is a very little change from the last reporting, and that's because only one risk actually moved within that framework. But following on from the workshop this morning, you will see in the next lot of reporting that we do, the application of the risk appetite. So that just reflects the conversations that we had this morning. So I'm happy to take the report as read and to answer any questions. I'd just like to acknowledge that in the room we do have Ari, who is our ICT manager, should you have any questions about strategic risk at the very top. And we also have members of ELT here that are able to speak to their own risks. So again, take the report as read and happy for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Mayor Andrew.
Yeah, look, thank you for the report. Comprehensive as usual. I'm looking at risk SR 93, which is the number 10 on the top 10 list. So it's gone from number 1 to number 10 from the time frame, which was September 2024. And can I make an assumption that that is due to the success of the 6-point plan, that is gone from a number 1 to number 10?
Through you, Worship. Through you, Chair. Yes, that is correct.
Councillor Jenny.
Thank you. Just while we've got Ari in the room, and with the number 1 risk, obviously it's moved, from 2 to 1 because of that change that Mayor Andrew's just spoken about. But it would be good to hear from Ari what he considers to be those things that concern him the most, that has got this to be number 1.
Thanks, Jenny. That's great. Welcome, Ari.
I think it's shifted not because the risk has increased. I think it's just because the number 1 moved out of the way, and so by default it became number 1. I think that to be honest, we're continuing to be in a better and better place as our security frameworks are becoming more and more mature, and our processes and our incident management and everything has become pretty well streamlined and faster and more, I guess, fluid, and our response times have gotten better and better. We've put more systems in place. As more things move into the cloud, there is a little bit more of a not a higher risk, but a wider risk. So there's much more different attack points, if you might want to call it, or areas of things that we have to keep monitoring. But we've not only keeping on top of that, but we've brought in other resources and systems in place to make that more automated and quicker.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool, that's great, thank you. Councillor Kate?
Thank you. I don't want to kind of delve into thinking, oh, this risk is in there and it should be higher or lower, or because I guess it's a bit of a global approach at the 10 high risks. But I was interested in that at number 3, changes in central government policy or direction occur and place additional compliance requirements on changes in the on councils and the community. And that's up there with things like planning for business continuity. It's up there with failure to manage workplace health. I guess, and I guess, and that covers or includes in it, the changes to 3 waters. Do we actually think that central government is going to create such change that we will really struggle to manage that change, given that my impression is we're actually quite a well-performing council?
David?
Through you, Chair. Look, it's certainly a risk, notwithstanding our good performance. There is a plethora of change coming our way across the various reforms, with the potential that the cumulative and compounding impact of all of that change does become something that is quite material. And you'll know that I've spoken to you before, where if you add up the impact of the local water done well reforms, and then there's a regionalisation of our RMA functions, and then a regionalisation of our building control functions, a third of the council's revenue has been removed and placed at a regional level without a real ability for us to descale our overheads. We can't cut our Tech 1 costs by a third. We can't have 2/3 of a payroll system. Those things are pretty fixed. So our ability to respond is really going to be limited by increasing rates to fund those stranded overheads. That's going to come at a cost, but also start to undermine some of the critical mass that the council has that allows us to perform at a higher level. And you can see the smaller councils struggling. We'd effectively be pushed into the territory of being one of those smaller councils as they are today. But there's other impacts. Just funding the levies for Te Mata Arawai and the Commerce Commission to oversee the local water done well regime is going to cost $250,000 a year. That's been imposed on us by central government through the consultation process they ran over Christmas, that we're going to have to add to our rates, and we've got no choice over that. So individually, those changes are small and we can take them in our stride. Collectively, they're going to compound and become quite significant to the point where it wouldn't take much more change for it to become an existential threat to the organisation.
I believe you. Good answer.
Yes.
Councillor Jenny?
Oh, sorry.
I was thinking that when you look at these strategic risks, if you think about, particularly from a councillor's perspective, what the big things are that you're dealing with, and it's been interesting to hear from David, do you see those somehow summarised and reflected in these? So I was thinking about local water done well and where the risk assessment around the options might be and all of that sort of thing. And I saw that in SR 59, these changes that are coming, you're dealing with them in different ways, but are we actually managing and identifying the risks in that sort of work that we're doing too. So I saw that under there. Okay, any other questions or issues on the strategic risk report? No, that's great. I'll put the motion then that we accept the strategic top 10 report. I'll move it, and a seconder, Kate. Thank you. Thanks, Debbie. We're back to the strategic risk register report. This is the full risk register. So if you can just highlight the differences for us and any sort of changes and things in there, that would be helpful. Oh, all those in favour? Yes. Oh, sorry, yes, I jumped. Was there any debate after we moved and seconded it? No, thank you. And all those in favour? Anyone against? Carried. That's my first slip up early in the meeting, sorry. Yes. Yes, right. Over to you, Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, again, I'm going to take this report as read. It's quite a bulky report. It does cover every strategic risk that the organisation has currently and has been reviewed with the respective risk owners and ELT recently. You will see in the table within the reporting there is a summary of the risk changes in there. Most of those changes were to do with the risk actions and some movement of the risks and an amalgamation as an example of the project delivery with another risk. That's a good part of risk management, is that sometimes you can amalgamate those risks because they do cross across the organisation and they don't necessarily stand alone. Again, within that same reporting, you will see a table in there with the risk treatments and everything else on there. So again, just highlighting, yes, there has been a review. I do want to draw your attention to the PESTEL document, which is attached to the reporting. What that is a little bit of a horizon scan of things that are out there that may not be impacting on us, but things that we have to keep a watching brief on as things move along, particularly in the geopolitical sense and quite a few other areas. So again, I'm happy to take the report as read. ELT members are here should there be a question specifically on any of their risks. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Andrew?
Yeah, thank you, Debbie, once again. I was actually I went straight to the PESTEL report. And that was my line of my question. And there's a couple of questions in that. The first one, it's great to have a wider, more global perspective of outside of just council operations and indeed Whanganui as well, to understand what's happening. So I'm interested to understand how this is used as opposed to a bunch of statements, which is great, and observations. How do you intend to use this PESTEL analysis?
So PESTEL is a really good tool for horizon scanning. It may be things that aren't impacting on us right now, so it's for me to keep a watching brief on through places like the World Economic Forum and other agencies. It's also to look at what's happening in central government through other agencies. So again, to have the discussion with members of ELT and with the CE and with Mike, of course, if there's anything that's starting to get a little bit close to our radar or starting to move into that uncomfortable zone.
Okay,
It's very much a dynamic process. PESTEL doesn't sit and is not static. It's very much dynamic.
Yeah, no, great. Look, I'm very familiar. I've used PESTEL a lot, and it's a useful tool. What I find its use though is when it's applied, as opposed to because these statements, the observations here are great. They're quite high level, but I'm interested in how this the PESTEL analysis is applied to council risk management.
So in the past, when this is not the first iteration of PESTEL that the organisation has seen, it has been used to inform risk reviews. It's been used to inform considerations for future strategic risks, of which some of them are actually in your strategic risk register now, or some of them could end up being emerging risks that they're pretty close to the boundary for us, but they actually haven't been realised at this point. So again, just reiterating that it is dynamic, it is communicated with ELT, yep. And we do have those discussions as to what's coming up.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, great.
Cool.
So it's applied. That's great. That's
yep.
fine.
David? Yeah.
Through you, Chair, just to maybe provide some further reassurance, I think Debbie's just trying to explain that. It's used as a critical thinking and a prompting tool to make sure that when we are considering the risks that the organisation could potentially be exposed to, that we're actually thinking broad enough and we're paying attention to more than what's just under our immediate noses, and you know, world trends, global politics, all of those things start to get captured in our thinking. So a critical thinking tool is how I would see the pestle analysis being applied.
Thank you. Councillor Kate.
Thank you. I think I'm a little bit of a stuck record. It's a great report, you know, really solid, thoughtful analysis and description of the risk that we face. So, and Debbie, you've talked about ELT. So what role does the rest of the organisation have in this? I mean, would your Tier 3 managers even know about this?
So in respect of the Tier 3 managers, when the operational reviews were done, the pestle was shared with them, because some of these may not be strategic. They may fit into our operational space, so that information was shared with them. And when I work through with the Tier 3 managers on an individual basis, we actually look at what's on their horizon as well.
Right.
Because they're the experts in their area. I only have a view like this, whereas they have the widest area of responsibility, and can often pick up things that I may not have picked up, because that's their area of expertise.
Cool.
You meaning the strategic risks themselves, or the pestle?
Well, both really.
Right.
Yeah.
So the strategic risks are, we know who the owner is, and they are worked through with their managers and that sort of thing, so they contribute to the mitigations and that sort of, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
So what you're saying to me, this is not a desktop exercise done by yourself in ELT, that actually it's informed by what other members in the organisation think too. Yeah?
Thank you, David.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, yes, that's right. And it reflects our overall approach to leading the organisation. So you'll be aware that since the restructure pre-Christmas, we formalised what we're calling the wider leadership team, and that is about engaging not just the Tier 3 managers, but also those technical leaders that have a lot of influence, even if they don't have people leadership responsibilities as direct reports, so that the executive team and the wider leadership team work in concert, and there's a lot more collaboration in the leadership tiers across the organisation, so that we do engage those people that are closer to the ground, have better knowledge of issues, and it isn't definitely a desktop exercise.
Thank you very much. Another good answer, or good answers.
Great, thank you. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, my question was on the same line, is that the ownership of these risks is very narrow, and it becomes, you know, you become so distant from the actual coalface, especially in the staff's welfare and health and safety issues, that it just does become, but it's reassuring that that has been accommodated then. So how can we be sure that what you say is actually done in practice?
Good question, Councillor Peter. Through you, your Chair, I think that's part of why you're here asking these questions now. But if I use the health and safety risk as a good proxy, it's a strategic risk because of its potential impact on people and the high level of importance that we place around looking after our people's safety and well-being. And then you can see through the reporting that I'm providing through my due diligence activity, through the reporting that you get from Olivia as our health and safety manager, whilst I may be named as the owner of that strategic risk, there's way more activity going on across the whole of the organisation, from a grassroots reporting level of near misses through Olivia's activity, the executive team going out and doing their own site visits, and then my due diligence that this is a pan-organisational response to the risk, not just, again, sitting with me as the risk owner as a desktop exercise. But by all means, pick away and probe away with your questioning and test us on that one.
Okay, I will continue to probe and question. Thank you.
We have talked in the past, David, about a small pop quiz survey across the organisation about risk awareness, and we've sort of been trying to manage the right timing for that, given other surveys and issues. But I do think it would help to reassure the committee at some point to have a benchmark and to be able to sort of measure that in the future. So I'll put that back on the agenda, and we'll just find the right time to do that. That would be really helpful, I think, yeah. Any other questions? Mike,
Yeah, it's not a question really, it's more a statement. Look, I think this risk reporting is really, really good. I can't tell you whether the top 10 risks are the right risks, but I really like the process. I really like the pestle report. It's really good to see that there, Debbie, and actually, drilling down on the detail. And I certainly support Susan's comment, reiterate that comment of, because as members of this committee, for me anyway, I need to gain assurance that this is actually, the rubber hits the road, is down at the third level and below. Are the people in the organisation actually aware of all of this? And the more I hear, the more I get a better feeling that they certainly are, and that we've got a really good risk system in place. That's the comfort I'm feeling at the moment. But I take Susan's point. It would be good just to test the water another bit. The other thing I have in here is there's an awful lot of work that you've put into this. I just hope that you have really good systems and processes around it, so it's not creating a huge amount of work for you. That it's a great database you've got, and you can spit it out really easily, because this could be a nightmare to produce. Having done these myself, it's really well presented. Thank you.
Thank
Debbie,
you, Mike.
yes,
I can through the chair, I can assure you that we've not long, in contribution to savings, taken away a system that we used to use, and we have an in-house solution which works very, very well for the reporting and everything else, and it actually meets our needs. So yes, it's not too labour intensive to do the reporting. Thank you.
That's cool, thank you. I think the other thing that's good to see is, continuing the emerging risks, strategic risks, and we've got 2 on there at the moment. And I was talking to Debbie prior to the meeting about other strategic risks which are emerging that have come to us in the past, and some of those move into operational risks as time sort of moves on. But I did wonder, Lance, given that you're here, we might ask you a bit more about the NZTA funding, the critical one we've got there. Would you like to join us? It's yours, isn't it? Oh, sorry, reallocated from Sarah O'Hagan to Lance Kennedy. Sorry. NZTA, Emergency Work Subsidy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm aware that it might only have just been transferred to you. So, but it is the emerging risk that is showing still as critical, the initial risk, and it's high. What are the impacts if this NZTA work subsidy, the funding, doesn't sort of come through for us? What happens, both to sort of the projects that we've probably got underway?
Do I need to say through the... Because you asked the question. Without stating the obvious, I mean, the impacts are clearly financial, so if that funding is affected negatively, it's going to cost the council more. And then the impact on the projects in terms of completion times, and, if it's an emergency, then it might not get the treatment that it needs within the time frames that we should complete it in. So, but I see David's got his light on, so he must have some
That's cool, David.
views.
Through you, Chair, just relating to this particular risk, and it's a very, very recent development because I only just received correspondence from the NZTA, so Lance doesn't even know yet. But they made a decision because they consulted with the local government sector on changing the thresholds that meant that there would be a reduction in that emergency funding, which is where this risk came from. They've just communicated that they've decided not to make those changes, so this risk has effectively become redundant in the time it's taken to write the report and get it here as a result of that correspondence, which is some good news from our point of view.
That's great, thank you. Great update. I mean, I think everybody would be very pleased with that. I was just imagining, you know, roadworks half done and then sort of, you know, the workers packing up and going away and leaving the potholes or whatever it is. So it's, I mean, it made me think quite a bit about how you would need to manage some of these projects so that if you didn't get the funding, you didn't leave, you know, roads in a state that was not, you know, acceptable. Did you have something else to add, Lance?
I was going to say, that's the lines we're thinking along.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got the update at the same time you have, so it's good to hear that from David.
That's very welcome, thank you. We can take the red off that. That's a good outcome. Okay, so I'll put the recommendation that we accept the Strategic Risk Register report for May. Kate's happy to move. Josh to second, thank you. Any other comments? Oh, yes, Michael. Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess definitely a comment and a warning that we probably need to put some money and time into the AI risks and mitigation strategies. I am very impressed that they're already on the pedestal. I am already impressed that we're looking at opportunities around AI, which is fantastic. However, we've reached a critical time now where not only can receipts be generated via a free tool, so your employee expenses, not only can you create newspaper articles on the fly, generate information, and pretend that you're David Langford via text, voice, phone calls, and everything else. We are unlikely to be hit by a whole bunch of waves of information, but I think we should be prepared and put it as at least a medium risk for a reputational risk. Because I think it's going to come very quickly that these tools are now pretty much free to be used, and you can generate images, generate videos, and generate more knowledge about the council than probably our own employees have. So I think, you know, I know you want to match tools with tools, which is, I think, is a great opportunity, but we should start raising and mitigating that risk over time. Thank you.
That's noted, thank you, Michael. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried, thank you. David, the Chief Executive's Health and Safety Due Diligence Activity Report. Thank you very much for the report. It was very strategically useful in terms of your critical risks that you're looking at, but also the explanation around the issues recently for staff and the threat to staff. So over to you.
Through you, Chair, I'll take the report as read, but just to draw your attention to a couple of highlights. First one, I have to wear a few hats in my role at council. One of those is as a director on a shared services company, so I also have due diligence obligations to that organisation, and you'll see in my report that I recently made a visit to the site, and that's around me making sure that I am familiar and understand the operations of that organisation and the risks that it faces, and then it was also an opportunity for me to verify some of the board papers that I received from the executive officer and his team around the health and safety activity that's going on, and see it was actually being done rather than just taking it face value and on trust and paper. Similarly, stepping into the CE's role at the joint venture airport, I've undertook training in the safety management systems there so that I can demonstrate that I am a fit and proper person to hold that role. And again, with that comes gaining the knowledge specific to airport safety and procedures and practices. Threatening behaviour, we have had a number of discussions around that over recent months, and you can see that that's been a particular hot topic with a few events, but that has resulted in some action, particularly in regard to increasing resource to make sure that we don't have vulnerable staff exposed whilst working on their own, which is always an aggravating factor to those kind of incidents. And then looking at how we can make sure the environment in our customer services area is physically safe, and then backed up with appropriate training and practice drills as well. And then finally, I'll just mention the critical risk assessment process. And I think Olivia will probably talk a little bit more about that when she gets to her report. But we are working through each of those 20 risks. You can see listed there, making sure that we have got the most dangerous risks, those things that are most likely to cause harm, or as we say, the sticky risks, stuff that kills you, that they're well managed and under control, and that we have an identified set of minimum controls that is the base expectation across the whole organisation. What that does is it gives us consistency in how we manage these risks across the whole organisation, and it also gives us a benchmark to make sure that we are resourcing the organisation to actually put those controls in place, as well as a benchmark for our own assurance activities. If I have a set of critical risks and a predefined set of minimum standards, when I go out and about in the organisation, I can check and verify that the way we imagined the work was going to be done is actually how it's occurring, and that those resources are actually being used by the organisation and they're actually being provided by the management team, so that we're doing our we're living up to our duty of care to look after our people and members of the public as well. I'll leave it there. Happy to take questions.
Great. Councillor Peter.
Oh, first cab off the rank. I applaud your training for the staff and frontline for de-escalation. Do you feel that not only your staff but councillors could also do with some de-escalation, like are councillors part of the council's obligation for their safety, and therefore, you know, should councillors be given the opportunity for training?
Through you, Chair, I think the answer to that is probably a relatively easy and straightforward yes. We should include you and make that training available.
Easy answer.
So when, a supplementary question then, when will the invite go out?
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not going to shoot from the hip and throw a date at you right now. We'll take it offline and we'll take an action away to put something in place for you.
Thank you. Mayor Andrew.
Yes, this is the Chief Executive's health and safety due diligence activity. I'm keen on your view on, from a just culture perspective. That's James Reason's work on just culture and the people feeling safe to speak up and so on. How have you found, what's your observation of people's willingness to highlight a health and safety issue and talk about it openly without repercussion?
Through you, Chair, I think that is an area where we continue to improve. I don't think I'll ever be at the point where I'll say we've nailed it and it's excellent and job done. But I don't think we're in a bad spot at all, and Olivia has done a lot to contribute to that in her time here. It's reflected in the reporting statistics, where we're seeing consistent and reoccurring reporting going on of both near misses and incidents. I think the organisation's leadership also backs itself with its actions when we do have incidents that are investigated, and we have had some recently. One at the Splash Centre is a really good example where the process of investigating is done in accordance with those principles of a just culture. So we still hold people to account for willful or negligent behaviour, but we take it as an opportunity to learn to improve rather than apportion blame yes. And I think it also reflects, there's evidence in our annual staff engagement surveys that indicates that we've made a lot of progress, Catherine, with the protected disclosures policy and making sure we have independent avenues that people can blow the whistle without having to come directly through the management team. There is a completely independent, separate process that's available. So a lot of effort is going in to building the trust between the leadership and the rest of the organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Sorry, Chair. I tried to get your attention earlier, but I'm not linked to this machine properly. It's minor but important. Before we pass this matter, which I can't vote on, page 73, second to last paragraph, it says risks associated with, it says during formal meetings, the bard receives reports from the executive officer. Yes. A bard is a person who is a poetic person who recites epic poems or songs or genealogy. So I'm not sure if David would welcome those kinds of things, but if we could change it to board before we deal with it formally, could that be all right? B-O-A-R-D.
Through you, Chair, absolutely. I'm really pleased to see that Councillor Ross has found the deliberate mistake. I like to check that you were actually reading it.
And because you always wanted to be called a bard, you always wanted to be that poetic person.
Yeah, my dulcet tones.
He's quite poetic.
Mike Timmer.
Yeah, thank you for the report, David. It's good to see that you're out and about and you're certainly doing stuff.
Sorry, Mike, you've just turned your microphone off.
Yeah, sorry. I certainly get a degree of comfort that you've been out and about and doing stuff, and it's really, really good. I just wondered where the councillors are sitting, and I guess even this committee for that matter, because we have an obligation to go out and observe these things as well. And I don't know if maybe you could tell me whether the councillors have been out and been involved in the health and safety aspect of actually seeing it in action.
Through you, Chair, some councillors have been out on site visits with me, albeit I will confess in my busyness I've probably forgotten to extend the invitation when I've been going out. A lot of my visits have been more impromptu rather than scheduled, but I will take an action just to put that practice back in place of if I've got a scheduled visit, I'll extend the invite so that you can tag along.
Cool. Thank you. Councillor Jenny, no?
That was my question. I mean, I've been on one of these a couple of years ago, but it would be good because I think it's a responsibility of us as risk managers to, you know, at least do some site visits.
Cool, thank you. Councillor Josh.
Thanks, Susan. David, my question is quite a specific one, and it relates to the critical risk around aircraft collisions that you've identified in your report. There's been a lot of commentary online, and I know that the Projects and Grants Committee has had a report on it very recently, but about the taxiway, the parallel taxiway at the airport. My question, because I think it's important that the public is able to hear the response, is can you provide us with a summary to this committee about why the parallel taxiway was deemed to be the most effective way of mitigating risk? And I want to quite deliberately separate that out from any cost implications or that sort of thing and focus purely on the risk mitigation factor there.
Yeah, so the through you, Chair, I don't think I actually can separate out the cost implications because cost was actually one of the defining criteria that led to the parallel taxiway.
Sure.
So there are the airport is incredibly busy in terms of the numbers of movements, and yes, there's a parallel. There is an existing grass parallel taxiway. It's not usable by all of the aircraft there. It's not usable in all weathers and all year round. It's also not usable at night because it's not illuminated properly, and it doesn't run the full length of the runway. So there is always some partial taxiing on the runway, regardless of whether the grass taxiway is used or not. Excuse me. What that does is it creates an inefficiency and a safety issue at the airport. Whilst aircraft are on the runway taxiing, they're occupying it. It can't be used by any other aircraft to take off or land. So it slows down and limits the throughput of traffic that we can put in the air, into the air. That's going to limit our future growth for both transport routes, but also limit the growth of the other airport operators there because they're competing for runway space. At the same time, if you have aircraft entering the runway, whilst you also have a busy circuit overhead, people queuing effectively to land and take off, the risk of incursions onto the runway while somebody else is trying to use the runway creates the risk of colliding aircraft. And over the last year, I think from memory, we have had 28 near misses of possible or actual incursions onto the runway. 20 of those have been mitigated by the Unicom operators intervening and communicating with the pilots to avoid the incident progressing. The other 8 resulted in aborted takeoffs or landings where the incoming aircraft did another lap before landing. So that's kind of the background and why it's both a safety and an efficiency growth related solution. The 3 options to resolve it are either to cap the number of aircraft movements at the airport so that we get below the threshold of 40,000 movements a year, which would then satisfy the CAA. We could have built the parallel taxiway, or we could have put a full traffic control solution in. Capping the number of aircraft movements is not a desirable solution from a commercial point of view. You'd limit the revenue from landing fees. That would mean that the ratepayer had to subsidise the operation of the airport more so than they currently do, and then the commercial viability of other users operating out of the airport would also be limited because they wouldn't be able to fly as much. It's not a good solution for anybody, albeit it would resolve the safety issues. Full air traffic control doesn't resolve any of the efficiency issues on the runway because the runway would still be occupied. It does address the safety issue. It doesn't give you any additional capacity for future growth either. It is also the most expensive option that was on the table because by the time you've put the systems and processes in place and then upgraded the control tower so that that's at a usable standard, you would have been circa $2 to $3 million worth of investment anyway. And then based on the cost of operating the traffic control system at Kapiti Airport, I think it costs them over $1 million a year to operate it by the time you pay for staff and all of the other things that go with running it. So very, very quickly it becomes grossly more expensive in the long run than the parallel taxiway did. So it is the cheaper option. It ensures the future growth of the airport, it addresses the safety issues, and it makes the airport runway more efficient. That's why we picked the parallel taxiway as the preferred solution.
Well, thank you for that incredibly thorough answer. Really appreciate it.
Cool. Any other comments or questions at this point? No? Okay, so I'll put the motion that we receive the report, the Chief Executive's Health and Safety Due Diligence Activity Report for May. Jenny to move, somebody to second. Thank you, Kate. Any other comments? All those in favour? Anyone against? No, that's carried, thank you. Welcome to Olivia for the Health and Safety Wellbeing Information Dashboard Report for February and March. Yeah, good to have you joining us today. Thank you for your report, and I think David's report, particularly around the threatening incident, threatening behaviour one, when I first read your report, I thought, gosh, we've got a whole lot of questions about that, and then we got David's report and we had more information about what was happening there. But, you know, just I think we're always thinking about what reassurance we can get that we're doing enough and as much as we possibly can to protect staff in situations like that. So I'll hand over to you for any points you want to make about your report. Thank you.
Afternoon. Thanks, Madam Chairperson and members of the committee. I feel like some of my report's now been explained, so I'm fairly happy with that. I won't be doubling up on any information that the CE's already given you. You've read that we had 18 staff-related incidents and reported in my dashboard, and there was a specific spike in those threatening or abusive behaviour incidents, which we've already covered. Those were treated as potentially critical events. The staff involved the police where they were needed, and David's already explained the targeted initiatives that were already started to ensure that those controls are continued, or that any additional risks are mitigated. In the trends and reporting, encouragingly, reporting culture remains really strong, which I'm really happy to see that that's remained consistent over the last few years. Reporting is up due to those behavioural incidents, though, over the last period, but we're tracking really consistently, which I guess is not a reduction, but it's not an increase either. And because of that, it shows that our reporting systems are working well. So in regard to the focuses for myself for this year, which were compliance, critical risk and contractor safety, our site-wise pre-qualification of our contractors uptake continues. It's really encouraging to see our contractors making the most of that pre-qualification and also taking the opportunity to improve their own health and safety procedures. Second phase of rollout starts in July for that. And the Contractor Health and Safety Forum was really well received. There were around 20 contractor representatives coming, and they were specifically from the health and safety part of those contractor businesses, so we weren't talking about projects in general, just around the health and safety involved with those contracting firms and how it relates to council. I won't cover the critical risk work plan. I think that's been fairly well done, but just to note that 95% of those bow tie assessments are now complete, so we're ending that part of the assessment. In the site discovery audits, there's only one of those outstanding now for the year, and the great thing is that nothing significant has come out of those to report to this committee. No risks that we weren't aware of, and no significant risks that aren't being monitored and controlled across our organisational sites. And just to note that our targeted health monitoring is now complete for this year as well, so that involves the health monitoring of those people working for council that have either respiratory conditions that, respiratory issues that may be exacerbated by their working conditions, and also oral or chemical exposures as well. So overall, fairly happy with the dashboard. There's a lot of proactive work going on at the moment, really great engagement, quite a lot of meaningful progress, and I don't do that alone. Really great engagement from all the staff.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks very much. Councillor Josh?
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. And this may be a question to David as well. But I just wanted to clarify with the incident that occurred in March around the mock Molotov cocktail and the threatening notes left down at customer services. Mentioned that there was an individual arrested. Are we able to confirm that those incidents were attributed purely to one individual, or are there potentially multiple involved?
4 of those significantly critical incidents were attributed to that one individual. The rest, there was an increase of reporting so we could make sure we had an understanding of what was actually happening and we could trend it well.
Sure, okay, thanks.
Councillor Kate?
Thank you. My questions relate to the critical incidences. Firstly, around the threats of violence, and I understand well, I know that there's been steps taken in de-escalation training. Is that for downstairs only, or has that been spread more widely across the client-facing areas of our workforce?
Through you, Madam Chair, that isn't just for the customer-facing customer service and municipal building. We're also rolling those opportunities out to Splash Centre, to eyesight, and to other parts of the organisation that have significant risk in that area.
Thank you. So what does opportunities look like?
Opportunities
Specifically?
looks like internal training. It looks
Yep.
like external training with verified training organisations. It looks like debriefing, hot and cold, and it also looks like maintaining our risk registers and maintaining our knowledge of risk in that area, so we're always reviewing it to make sure we haven't missed anything or the risk level hasn't changed.
Sure, that sounds really good. I'm going to ask a really kind of basic question, and is that's about how easy is it for members of our staff to access this training?
It is easy.
Like real easy?
Yes.
Okay,
It's putting
cool.
through a training request or having a discussion with a manager.
Okay. And it's done on like your roster for it if it's
That's correct.
to back cover and all of those sorts of things, so that people can easily get away for that.
That's correct. But also there's internal training that I roll out apropos of nothing, just because they're in a risky area.
Right. Cool. And then my question around the incident at the notifiable event at the Splash Centre, in terms of training, learnings, what does that look like?
In terms of training, we recognised that a lot of our emergency drills that we did there didn't involve babies. So we've increased the amount of baby training that we're doing, and we recognise that as a risk because although it is done throughout the year, when someone hands you a child, it can be a shock to the system. So the more we can educate people and drill people and make it almost a routine function, the more likely they are to react in a non-shocked way.
Right. So that's embedded in our regular reviews as updates on that sort of training.
Correct.
Cool. Nice. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Through you, Chair, just going back to the abusive and threatening behaviour risks and incidents, one additional thing that we're about to start looking at that you may be of interested in is some kind of persona work around the types of customer that we receive, and looking at what we can do to I suppose put the fence at the top of the cliff rather than the training at the bottom of the cliff kind of response. What can we do as an organisation to stop making people quite so angry when they walk through our front doors, so that we get less of these issues? Not sure how that's going to play out, but it's a piece of work that we've got on our radar in front of us that we'll be undertaking soon. We've seen, hopefully, the benefits of having a relatively low rates increase. Certainly takes the vitriol out of some people's sales. I'm sure there's more we can do to be a friendlier, easier organisation to do business with that doesn't make people quite so cross in the first place.
Thank you for that. Can I just ask additional? What might that look like down at the Splash Centre? Because I understand that you can get some pretty aggro folks down there, and that won't be about council, I wouldn't have thought. Well, not necessarily about council.
Through you, Chair, I think it's too early to say. We need to go and do some of that work, talk to the team down there and involve them. But you are right, it will be different. If you're going to the Splash, that's a happy transaction. You're going there to pay to do something fun. If you're coming in to pay your rates or your dog reg show at council, that's not a happy transaction. That's one you have to do. So there's different personas at different places that our community interacts with council. We need to talk to the teams, and they'll give us that kind of information.
Awesome, thank you.
Can I just ask about the dashboard before we put the motion? I'm just so with the dashboard, I'm looking for sort of trends, and when I look at the dashboard, you know, we look at recordable incidents, frequency rate, staff in the middle there, we've got nothing, 0, 0, 0, 0. Then we've got another Excel sort of table, a table there with the months, and we've got nothing because they're not medical treatment injuries, obviously, or lost time injuries. But then down the bottom we get the reporting around, you know, first aid injury and that sort of thing. On the right-hand side, there's a coloured column, and I'm presuming, I'm just not, what I'm looking for, Olivia, are the trends. So I'm looking for are we getting better or worse, or what was happening in February and March last year? You know, is it a seasonal thing? Just from this dashboard, I wonder if you could help me, or whether there's another view that we could get out of all of your material that would give us a bit more information around trends or year-to-date information. So can I just ask you about that?
Sure. The zeros are good things.
Yes, I thought they were, but then I'm thinking, how informed do I feel?
Unfortunately, I can't put in things in there that aren't happening.
No,
so we are going to get some zeros there, especially in the medical treatment injuries and the lost time injuries. I'm more than happy to work with this committee to see what works best for them. However, I wouldn't want to drag something out and then have it be missed in the future, because we are starting to see those incidents come back. But there's definitely some reformatting that can happen. You're looking at the injuries and the incidents as they are occurring.
Yes, which is great, and so it is up to date.
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a chat with you offline, and if anybody has any feedback on the dashboard, that's cool. But I was just looking for how do I know the zeros are good, but actually even the you know, incident, no injuries, I mean, those sort of things are what we're getting reported to us. Are they increasing or not? And so, you know, just trying to get a sense of that.
Sure. If you do just look on that right-hand column, it does tell you staff reports current and then comparable to 2023, which should actually say 2024.
Okay, so, that's cool. Well, so we might have a look at the dashboard just to sort of see if we can get some more information. I'll have a chat to you about that. Yep, cool. Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. I'm about to have a health and safety issue with my microphone, and I apologise. Olivia, thank you for your report. But in the February report, compared to the March report, overspeeds was 22 in February. This is a much lighter topic. And in March it was 25, a small increase. Overspeed, I assume, is staff exceeding the speed limit. Do we have devices fitted to all our machines, or is to our motors, or is this tickets issued? Or do we have somebody with a particular lead foot?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's definitely overspeeds reported through our in-vehicle devices, not tickets. So when you're looking at numbers like 22 and 25, that's over the many, many thousands of kilometres that are happening every single month.
So it's very small.
It's very small. And also, I think, even though there was an increase in March probably had more days in it.
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. That's cool. Thanks, Olivia. All right, so any other questions? I'll put the motion that we receive the Health and Safety Wellbeing Information Dashboard for February and March. I'm happy to move. Anyone second? Thank you, Councillor Josh. Comments? Okay, all those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks very much for your work here. That's cool. All right. Thanks, Lance. Next item is the internal audit program. Over to you, Debbie. Thanks.
Thank you. Through the Chair, this report introduces the proposed internal audit program for the 2025 to 2027 periods, which is the period that we have under contract with BDO Manawatu. The wider program has been discussed with the CE and with various ELT managers, because it is around our ability to resource and to make sure that we're not overlapping with anything that Audit New Zealand does, both in audit scope and audit timing. So I'm happy to take the report as read and to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks for the report, Debbie, and the audits that we've done. The table around those is useful to see as well, and with some dates on them as well. So thank you for that. Questions, comments on the internal audit paper? Mike Timmer?
Yeah, thank you for this report, Debbie. It's really good. It's good to see that we're looking out a couple of years with our audit planning, which is great. I'm just wondering how we've prioritised the projects, because the ones that are in white there, I assume they're ones still to come in the future. How do we go about prioritising and working out which ones were the blue ones that we're going to do straight away? Because you said to me, you know, there's a few criteria here. We've got the auditors doing stuff for us, and they're probably doing it for other councils at the same time, so therefore they tend to group the same things together. But then we've got our own criteria, which are, you know, trying to get it risk-based. So there's quite a lot of juggling going on here. I just want to get a feeling for how we've chosen what we've chosen.
So the first one that's through the chair, sorry, the development contributions was selected because it's actually a brand new policy that was put through last year, it's quite a change from what was in place previously. And it's always good to have that audit lens over it to make sure that it's embedded, it's working as it should, and there are any lessons learned, because audits are around continuous improvement as well as acknowledging good performance and that everything's working as planned. At the same time, the planning services one segued very nicely into that, because actually there's some synergy between those two work groups, and it was actually making best use of the auditor's time, because again, as we all know, the cost of auditing is, you know, can be expensive, so it's making the most and getting value add from our audit experience, and it's not auditing for audit's sake. And it's making sure that we can take things and look at it through that different lens. The next one, the commercial property rental revenue process, it's what I would call a significant and quite large audit. So again, the resources required for that would be greater than perhaps one of the smaller audits. So it is about having that well spread across the organisation. You will see in the table in there that indicates what we've had in the past. That's been put in place since I was started here, so that I made sure that we weren't doubling up on audits. You get the continuous improvement, organisational improvement register, so you see the follow-up of those audits as well. So that's where the decisions came for these ones here. The ones that are in white, sometimes they don't necessarily belong to us. They may have to be outsourced, but at the moment I'm focusing on the internal audit that works with BDO in our contract currently, and keeping within what I would deem to be reasonable costs.
So those ones in white, you've prioritised those and come up with the ones in blue, and also weighed them against the fact of what audit can do and can't do.
Some of the ones in white will be future audits. If we think about trying to do 2 internal audits per calendar year, that can be quite labour intensive, overlaid with the other audits that we have in the organisation. So they can be future audits at some point if they're tagged as internal audit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Debbie. One comment and some questions. What's the comment's sort of a question. The way your very nice wheel that explains to us the process suggests to me that the internal audit program is really just endorsed by us, that we don't get the opportunity to amend or change it. So I'll just leave that as it is. But I do think that this committee should be involved in the formulation of the audit plan, the internal audit plan. So that's my kind of question. So my next question is this schedule just about what BDO does, or is it about all of internal audit that we do?
Through the chair, the schedule that's actually in there, which is the wider opportunities, I guess, for audits, is across local government. It's not what BDO necessarily does. But certainly, with going with BDO now actually gives us a wider span of audit skill base for future audits where we might actually look to those. But certainly the bigger table is the audit universe across local government.
Okay, thank you. My next question is about what's in and out of internal audit. And when I started thinking about this, I thought it's probably just quite transactional activities of council that is included in here. But then I looked at like you've got there the communication strategy, the review of the council's communication strategy and the application of it. So it's a little bit more than that. So my specific question is, where does council's other strategies get audited, or you know, where does like the what are you calling it, the post-mortem of the Sargent project, where does that sit in terms of our internal audit plan in the kind of wider sense of the terms of the term?
David, yeah.
Through you, Chair, Debbie may jump in and correct me if I get this wrong, but I would see a lot of those things being reported back up through the Operations Performance Committee, rather than it being part of the internal audit process itself. I suppose the key difference is those are reporting how well we did what we do. The internal audit is about testing our internal controls and about how we do it. That doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it does. I get it. Certainly understand what you're saying about internal testing, internal controls. But I guess, you know, going back to that communication strategy, I'm not sure that we've got, well, we might have internal controls around that strategy. But I think probably that, unless you want to say more, that's probably enough said. But my next question would be, so do we have a diary of when are those post-project reviews are coming up? Does that, if that sits at operations and performance?
So through you, Chair, a couple of comments in response. First, with the communication strategy, I imagine from an internal audit perspective, that would be looking at things like, are we following our processes and delegations in terms of release of information to the media by authorised spokesperson? So it is a internal control lens to it. But in terms of the second part of your question, no, we don't yet have a planned calendar of project reviews. It's part of, I think, maturing our PMO capability. The review of the Sargent Gallery is going to be our first really good go at doing a post-implementation review, and should hopefully be the blueprint for what follows afterwards. But the PMO also does classify our projects around tiers 1 to 3, with 1 being the higher profile, higher risk projects. It would be those tier 1 and probably select tier 2 projects that we would be wanting to subject to post-implementation review, because we don't have the resource to review every single project. Pulling together a calendar of when those projects are due to complete and when the review should occur should be a relatively easy exercise for us to fill that gap.
Okay.
And just through the chair, and to add to the CE's comments, within the PMO framework there is an audit and assurance process that is separate to internal audit. So that's within the project management office as well.
Great. So we'll see that pop up at operations and performance.
And also when Trish, as the PMO, reports through to this committee with the dashboards that she has as well, you'll see some reporting on that as the process moves along a little bit further.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand all of the moving parts that you need to take into account to make the recommendation around what we should be focusing on, I guess. I was left sort of thinking about highest value, highest risk, so where, and if we were just to step back from it without even thinking about all of those other moving parts, what is the biggest sort of risky area for us of the most amount of money that, you know, could be subject to loss or an issue for our repairs. So I think what we've got is a recommendation. As Kate said, we've got the recommendation from you, weighing up those sorts of things. I do note that in our terms of reference, we we're supposed to recommend the plan to the full council, the internal audit plan, so we might need to talk about how that happens. And we need to give them that sort of framework that we've got here for that to go forward. So just a point to note on that. Any other questions? Oh, David.
Through you, Chad. Biggest risk, highest value, no disagreement with that. One of the lenses Debbie and I also put over this is coverage and frequency of audit, and making sure that we don't forget areas that are lower in risk or profile because we're over auditing the high value stuff. So make sure we don't leave any corners neglected.
Great, thank you for that explanation. There are no other questions. I'll put the motion that we receive the internal audit program report for 2025 to 2027. I have a mover.
Can I just following on from your suggestion about recommending to council?
Yes.
Should we be modifying that recommendation that we receive the report and recommend that council approves the internal audit program 25 to 27?
Yes, probably. I mean, it is part of our terms of reference in terms of, me looking at the terms of reference and are we doing, what we are required to do. I think we should do that. So just amend. Are people comfortable with that if we just amend the recommendation?
Well,
So
I'm moving it, and if you get a
Yes.
seconder, they get to choose.
Yep. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, Debbie?
Could I just add, there is an internal audit charter that the committee has been engaged with and agreed to at a time past, which still exists. Can I please be allowed to check that, and possibly that this motion then be amended to reflect what is in the internal audit charter?
Right.
Because I don't think in the past that the internal audit program has gone to full council, and it's perhaps the change to the terms of reference that's
Right.
indicated that rather than the intent of the change.
Right.
I suggest we just leave the recommendation as it is.
Yes.
We receive it, and then
Yep.
at the next meeting you have it
You
sorted.
can
and
confirm. Yes,
we'll do
that's
it
cool.
that way.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you, Kate. So we're leaving the recommendation as it is. We're going to have a look at, I was just checking the terms of reference. Debbie's going to have a look at the charter and confirm on that. We'll do that between now and the next meeting. At the moment, we're just moving. Kate, you've moved that
The
motion.
receiving, yeah.
And we've got Mayor Andrew seconding it as it is. That's great. Any other comments? All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Mike Fermor, do you want to join us? Oh, you're there, round the other side. The audit plan for the annual report audit for this year by Audit New Zealand. Over to you.
Thank you. Take the report as read. Perhaps a couple key points is that we're working to try to achieve the completion of the annual report and adoption prior to the elections. We have a date down there of 2nd of October. That's as close as audit is able to believe they can achieve their audit. To make that happen, we are bringing forward some of the work, for example, the asset valuations. I've put that in the report to try to achieve that date. Failing that, then we'll have to adopt post-elections, but before the end of October. So happy to take questions.
Okay, any questions on the audit plan? No? That's cool. Thanks, Jenny. Seconder? Thanks, Kate. Any other comments? Good. Yeah. It's always a big job, isn't it? Okay. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're doing well for time, so we'll keep moving along. Debbie, Organisational Improvement Register report. Can I hand over to you?
Thank you through the chair. It's actually my pleasure to present this report because there are only 5 open actions on it. So that is a result of 2 things. One, owners of the actions completing them, and probably a little bit of nagging at the same time. So when I first came here to council, there was 89 open revolving actions, and it is great to see them down to 5, and that is reflective of most of our more recent audit reports. So happy to take the report as read and acknowledge the work done to get to this point. Thank you.
Any comments or questions on the report? No, that's good. Oh, sorry.
Good
Mike.
work for finally getting there. We've been watching this with great interest over the years, and it's fantastic we've got there.
Absolutely. So if there are no questions or anything, I'll put the motion that we receive the report, the Organisational Improvement Register report for May. Kate's moved. Seconder. Jenny, thank you. Any comments? Kate?
Yes, I will speak to it. What did you say? 89 down to 5? Right. Go you.
Yeah.
I do remember there were some very pointed suggestions from one of our external members of the committee about the number of open items. So well done.
Yes. Yeah. That's great. And to the whole team, you know, everybody's got behind it, so that's very good. Thank you. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Councillor Peter.
Just a quick comment, and congratulations on your nagging. Please keep it up. So.
That's cool. David?
Through you, Chair, I feel compelled to say that Debbie does not nag.
Yeah, it's your presence. Yeah.
Holds us to account.
That's cool. That's great. Did I do all those in favour? All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. That's great, Debbie. We're up to the protected disclosures. Is Kirsty here? No. Perhaps we'll move to the assurance activity report. Oh, yes, please. That'd be great. And so, Debbie, we'll go to the assurance activity report. So back to you.
Thank you. Through the Chair, the assurance activity report for the last period has a little bit more information in it than would normally be in the reporting. So I'm just going to hand over to Mike to talk to you a little bit about the S&P update that's in there.
And also the insurance.
And the insurance
And the
update
insurance
as
one would be
well.
great,
Yep.
please, Mike. Yeah.
Thank you. Just for information, I've put some context or information around the downgrade of a credit rating from Standard & Poor's, downgraded 19 of 25 councils that they rate. There's a attachment there giving some rationale for that. We are meeting Standard & Poor's at the end of this month, and at that point we will work with them about what we need to do going forward to get back to the AA rating. So I can take questions on that one if you want. As far as the insurance goes, just really outlining the next steps post the elections. It'll be good for us to bring Aon here just to talk about next steps going forward and that sort of stuff, and they can answer questions you may have of them.
Thank you. So, Councillor Josh.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, my question is about your final comment around what we could do to get back to that more favourable credit rating. Reading the report, it strikes me that most of the reasons why it was reduced were due to more macro level issues in terms of the sector, government reform, things like that. So can you take a stab in the dark for me and make a comment on what the probability is that we as an individual council would be able to get back to a more favourable level?
I think one of the key things is debt levels, where they're going through the long-term plan. So the framework that they assess us for, there's 6 large KPIs they assessment for, and one of those is an institutional one across the total council. Now, across the total counts, we were that was a rating 1, which is the highest rating. They've brought that down to 2, so that's knocked us down from AA to AA minus. That's not going to change. The debt position of local councils generally is going up, so it's difficult to see that particular framework or that KPI changing. Part of the discussion end of this month will be to give them an understanding around our long-term plan, the sustainability of that, and the reasons behind our increasing debt. So they'll be interested in such things around our network, making sure we're maintaining our network. They have a key measure, which is your ARPA capital balance account, which means of how is your capital being balanced, funded over the years, and is it putting pressure on your debt balance. So those are the sorts of things we'll be talking about, but they will have a keen interest in our debt profile in our 24 long-term plan.
Just a supplementary to that, before we received notice that this downgrade was occurring, did Standard & Poor's make contact with council individually, or was this a sector-wide decision that wasn't made with any major consultation?
They gave the sector notice beginning of last year.
Yep.
That they had concerns around that particular institutional framework as the measure. They had concerns around that for the reasons outlined in the report attached to here. At our meeting with them last year, they maintained we maintained our AA credit rating. At that point in time, they didn't give us an indication that they were looking to downgrade us. But certainly this time around, we will be seeking some further explanation around that.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I think just answering that, it will be specific questions on them. What at Wanganui Council do you have concerns about, or what should we be working on or focusing on to go back up to AA?
Thank you, David.
Through you, Chair, if I may, a couple of comments, because Councillor Josh asked a really good question. Very much I see this as a macro sector-wide level assessment, and our council's been tarred with the same brush as everybody else without any real meaningful engagement before we were downgraded. So that's certainly going to be the main thrust of the conversation that I have with Standard & Poor's when Mike and I meet with them is actually what is it about WDC that required the downgrade, because we don't see it. Our debt forecasts are based on our long-term plan, annual plan that's before you for adoption, making sure we stay in line with our LTP forecasts. We're performing really well financially when it comes to our 6-point plan. We're increasing our investment in our infrastructure. All of those benchmarks that Mike has mentioned, we're either on track as per the LTP or improving. So it's a frustration if we have simply been tarred with the brush of the sector, particularly given one of the reasons that they've given for their justification of the downgrade is the increased borrowing for those high councils that's now enabled by the LGFA. Now, I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we were the only shareholding council of the LGFA that voted against that motion when it was put to their AGM.
There was
for this exact reason.
Two of us voted against it.
Oh, two. There we go. We weren't quite the last man standing, but we voted against it for this exact reason, that it put the sector's credit rating at risk because of the ever-increasing indebtedness. It's disappointing to be proved right.
Councillor Peter?
Yeah, on that subject, though, we have an unbalanced budget. Now, would that have any influence on their credit rating?
I'll defer to Mike in a moment, but yeah, it is going to be one of the factors. But as we've had discussions internally, I think there's ample justification for why our budget isn't balanced deliberately, because of those intergenerational equity issues of making current ratepayers pay for new assets as well as the replacement of assets that they will not be alive to experience. So I think there's justification. We'll need to provide that to Standard & Poor's and be really convincing. But Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Look, you're correct. We will explain to them. I don't believe that's necessarily key. A measure for them. One of the key measures is the debt burden. But I think it's important that they understand the increases in our debt through this long-term plan, through last long-term plan, for example, on lending through to holdings and things like that. So that will be, again, a focus of a conversation. I think a key thing here is that are we sustainable, and that's what we'll be pushing forward to Standard & Poor's.
Thank you. I just have a question around the financial delegations policy that has been reviewed because of the restructure. Can you remind me, is that a policy that comes to council?
The financial delegations, the Chief Executive's financial delegations are in a delegations register which is approved by council. Then David himself will delegate downwards to officers to enable them to do the work. So what has been reviewed through the restructure is as people move through different departments, making sure the delegation matches the operations that they're doing.
So it's just our delegations to David that we approve,
Yes.
and then David approves
Yep.
the delegations down?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions, Mike Timmer?
Yeah, I was just listening to Wo's comments about Standard & Poor's and stuff, and I think if you've got a really good case, I think there is an opportunity for them to change their mind or to get an upgrade. But yeah, the government's not helped all this process because they've been chipping away at the far rates. You know, they've been making councils pay more. But it's pleasing to hear that comment today about the emergency money, that they're not going to stop that. So that's a positive. But yes, I concur that we've been tarred with the brush of the sector. But then, you know, debt's one thing, but there are other, I think there are 5 or 6 criteria that they rate us on. So, you know, you do actually get scored on those. So maybe it's targeting those other areas as well and saying, well, have you got the right score in those other areas? That could be another thrust in terms of trying to lift our credit rating as well. So, good luck with it.
Perhaps a comment from me. I think it's important to perhaps get this in context. While absolutely we will try to get our credit rating upgraded, appreciate that a AA minus credit rating is a blooming good credit rating. That's equivalent to ANZ, BNZ, Westpac, those major financial institutions. So it is a very strong credit rating that we do have, which does show financial strength of council.
Thank you. Any other comments, Debbie? I think the rest of the report is, you know, self-explanatory.
No, I'm happy to take the remainder of the report as read. The focus was on the Standard
Yes.
& Poor's report. Thank you.
That's cool. So I'll put the motion that we receive the Risk and Assurance Committee activity report. I'm happy to move. Kate's going to second. Any other comments, questions? All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. We're due to have a break, but I think we've got about 10 or 15 minutes left. Shall we carry on? What's people's preference? Yep, good. Okay, that's good. Welcome, Kirsty. I didn't want to have to stand you down when you came early, so Kirsty's going to talk to us about the Protected Disclosures Policy implementation. So this follows on from your report last year, I think, earlier, yeah, and just giving us some assurance around the implementation of an important policy. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, the report is a follow-on to the report that Catherine brought late last year, just to give you certainty about the actions that are in place. Most things have been done. There are a couple that we will continue to work on, one of which is inducting new elected members after the elections, and we still need to finalise a training package into our new Thrive software that we have for training. but that work is well underway. Happy to take any questions.
That's cool. Councillor Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kirsty. Has anybody, we obviously don't need details, but has anybody actually used the policy yet?
Through you, Chair, no, we haven't had any reports at this stage.
And the fact that the fact that it's on the internet, it's easy to find, and somebody's clearing it when something might come in from that perspective.
Yes, so anything that came in through the internet, the policy is there, and the reporting channels are the same, whether it's an internal or an external.
Right. Yep.
And those are very clear for people to follow.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you. I mean, the report gave us everything I was looking for in terms of, you know, the implementation, making it widely available to both staff and the public. So that's great. Thank you. I'll put the, thanks Kirsty, I'll put the motion that we receive the report, Protected Disclosures Policy Implementation Update. Can I have a mover? Councillor Peter, and Kate will second. Any other comments? Thank you very much for the work here. All those in favour? Anyone against? Carried. That's cool. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, on to the last item, which is the activity, the work programme. Debbie, there's been a bit of movement on this, so perhaps you could just sort of go through what we've done, you know, what we had on for today and what we've moved. Thanks, Catherine. And what we've got coming up in August, that would be useful.
So through the chair, you will see in the report, I'm going to take it as read, but as the chair just said, just highlight a few things. It's actually going to be a very busy meeting in August because you're going to receive the risk management framework and policy, also an update on the progress with the critical risks. So any of those items in blue on there are additions to the agenda, to the work program. Also, the work program does tie back to your terms of reference. So in your, whatever this committee looks like in the next iteration, again, the work program will tie back to the outcomes in your terms of reference. You'll also be getting a report on the recent climate change risk and hazard assessment that was completed, and the chair has requested a committee end of triennium activities report, which will necessarily highlight all the things that we've discussed and give us a broader picture of the scope of the things that this committee has been involved in, and also help to set the scene for whatever happens next after the triennium. So I'm going to take the report as read, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Peter.
Not to be annoying or nagging, but can we have, because it's going to be such a full agenda, can we have more time to read it before the meeting?
I'm sure with the support of the CE and my democracy colleagues, we will do our best to get the reporting to you at an earlier time frame.
Thank you.
But please don't add anything more to the agenda. Thank you.
That's cool.
Can I just add a question?
Yes,
to that?
yes.
Even if just some of the reports, the agenda may not be complete, but some of the reports may be, and maybe the bigger ones could just get sent out ahead. Just gives us a heads up, that's all.
Cool. So you'll have a look at that with Bridget as well? Yeah.
We'll do our best.
That's cool. And I guess today we had the workshop too, which sort of had other information coming forward. So thanks for the work program, Debbie. That's really useful. And this is where we continue to monitor the terms of reference to make sure that we're actually picking up the things that we are required to look at regularly, so and comply with the terms of reference. Okay, on that note, I think we've finished the meeting. Thank you all very much. Kate, would you do the closing? Oh, right at the end. So do it right at the beginning and then right at the end. I sort of I get more speedy as I get towards the end. seconded it? You've moved it? Who's moved it?
I
Kate,
did.
thank you very much.
Yep. And I just wanted to speak to it very briefly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, very, very good report, very comprehensive, and what an excellent idea to prepare an end of training
Cool.
report. I think that's really good.
Cool.
Yeah, and I did joke about you being in this top 10 strategic risks, but that was just a joke.
We've just confirmed that I probably should be at this point in the meeting. Anyway, so we've moved and seconded. Are there any other comments? No, that's good. All those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Kate, could I ask you to do the closing karakia,
You could.
please?
It's a measure of good cheering as to how many unanimous recommendations you get through, you know. Oh, sorry about that. I oha ki ronga kia ranganui, I oha ki raro kia papatuanuku. Wakatairanga, te kupu, te kōrero, te mahi, ki te pū o te whare, hei taonga, I mahi amuri. Ka puta ki te wai au, ki te ao marama, humie huie taiki.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'll declare the meeting closed.